Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Iran Tech. I'm your host Ali Reza. Today we came to Shiraz for this episode at the tomb of Hafiz, one of the greatest Persian poets of all time. And if you've heard of the name Shiraz, you probably know it as a symbol of maybe Persian poetry because of the likes of Hafiz and Sa'di, and you would be right in assuming that. Or you might know it as a symbol of history of Iran with the likes of the Pink Mosque and the Persepolis, and you would also be right in assuming that. But what you might not have known that Shiraz is known for is that it is a top destination for medical tourism, perhaps the top destination for medical tourism in the country. So just as it's fitting to talk about Persian poetry, history and culture when you're in Shiraz, it is just as fitting to talk about a medical simulation tool that is being made here, and the latter is what we're doing in this episode. Medical simulators allow doctors, but mostly medical students, to experience something as close to the real thing as possible. And that real thing could be a surgery, a procedure, a test, a checkup, or anywhere in between. It gives them the hands-on experience they need, just without the consequences if they mess up, because this is a practice tool in the end, and to better prepare them for that real thing. There are three main categories of medical simulators that I can think of. Number one are human anatomy simulators, or really any other anatomy simulator for that matter. One of those we featured in this episode just a couple weeks before actually. It allows medical students as well as doctors to really examine the organs of the human body up close that have been scanned off of actual cadavers of actual organs. The second category is surgery simulators. Again, one of those we featured in the very first episode of the program, and that was actually more than just a simulator. It could actually perform surgeries. It mimicked the hands of an actual surgeon, the fingers and the hands of an actual surgeon. If I'm going to explain what an angiography simulator does, I also need to explain what actually happens in an actual angiography procedure. Why we do angiography is to diagnose clogged arteries as a result of plaque buildup. So what happens is that first we insert this guide wire and the end into one of the arteries in the patient's leg or their arms. We insert it into those arteries, and the end of this guide wire needs to be very flexible so as not to damage those arteries as it's twisting and turning inside the patient's artery, until it reaches the coronary artery. And then they stop with the guide wire. Then they insert the catheter. This is the catheter and this is the guide wire, and they insert it through here. And actually, if they want to know where the guide wire is in the patient's body, they emit the X-ray using this pedal. The left pedal emits the X-ray, and they can actually see that where the guide wire is on this display here. The display shows where the guide wire is at all times, and if they want to take a picture, they use the right pedal. So once the guide wire has reached the coronary artery, they insert the catheter, they take the guide wire out, and actually the reason why they can see the guide wire inside the patient's body is that the guide wire doesn't allow X-ray to go through it, but the catheter does. So that's why they can't just insert the catheter without the guide wire. That's one reason. Another reason is that the catheter isn't as flexible as the guide wire, so it might actually damage the arteries. So the guide wire is out, the catheter is in, then they inject a contrasting agent. This contrasting agent also doesn't let X-ray through, and because of that, you can actually see where the contrasting agent is in the body on this display. Right? Because the artery the heart is pumping the contrasting agent into the different arteries. So, and because of that, you can follow where the contrasting agent is, and because of that, you can see where it stops flowing in the artery in the x-ray, because you're also controlling the x-ray with the pedal. And because of that, you can see where the contrasting agent stops. And well, when you are moving these analogs, you can move the patient's bed as well as the C-arm. Now, let me show you what the C-arm is on the display. This is the patient's bed that you can move, and this is the C-arm that you can move. The C-arm is what emits the X-ray, and when you're turning the C-arm, you can turn, this image also turns, and you can see the arteries from different angles, and through that, you can get a better image or a better understanding of where the contrasting agent stops, and you can diagnose which artery is clogged up, which then you can use to treat the buildup of the plaque and declog that artery. So this was the angiography simulator. The next one is going to be the colonoscopy simulator. Now let's focus our attention to this colonoscopy simulator. This one requires a little bit less of an explanation, so I'll just jump straight into the test, and I'll talk about the test in a little bit. So I'm going to take out this endoscope, which is the tool that they use to diagnose problems in the colon, using this handle, which is the only aluminum handle that exists in the world, and these gears to basically give the orientation of this endoscope when you're moving inside the colon. So I'm just going to insert it into the device, the simulator, and see it move inside the colon. Now, this is a tool that the professors at universities use to give students tasks. Each one has a different user, and the doctors will watch a recorded version of their colonoscopy procedure in this VR simulated environment and score them based on their performance. Now, their performance can have different factors that can be scored based on. One of the factors is how much pain they cause the patient, which there's a pain meter here, and if you move the endoscope too erratically, or if you're like moving into the walls of the colon, it will react and the patient will cause pain. Or if you like, I don't know, blow air with no reason, you can see the colon is blowing, the colon is like widening, and this is going to be painful. I think I need to go a little bit deeper inside the colon to be able to cause pain to the patient. There you go. Now the patient is really feeling it. If I move it too erratically, they will feel pain. If I blow air into it, if I suck air out of it, or I can even like wash the walls of the colon if need be to get a clearer image. Speaking of the image, you can actually use this foot pedal right here to take images. If you want to show it to the patient, for example, I don't. Let me go a little bit deeper. That is really painful. I'm gonna suck the air out of it a little bit because I blew too much. Okay, I think I might fail at this a little too early. Okay, that was another image, and you can show this to the patient, and this is actually what happens in a regular colonoscopy. So this was the colonoscopy simulator. I'm just going to leave it here because if I just remove it, it'll cause even more pain. I'll leave it there. So this was the colonoscopy simulator, but there's still a couple more simulators and simulation environments that we need to check out. Our last stop is this MRI simulator. Now, just a random fact about MRI, or magnetic resonance imaging. It's actually one of the safest medical procedures, even safer than CAT scans. Well, definitely safer than CAT scans, which involve X-ray. And X-ray, while there's very little risk involved in a CAT scan because of the X-ray, there's still a risk. All right, enough with the random fact. This simulation environment, how it works is that you give it a phantom or a 3D model of an organ of the human body, and through just simply mathematical algorithms and with no reference imaging, with no reference images involved, it gives you an MRI scan of that 3D model or phantom. But that's not the best thing about this simulation environment. The best thing about it is that in universities or faculties, you don't find MRI scanners. You only find them in hospitals and they're pretty much always booked up. So a medical student doesn't really have access, or at least easy access to any of these MRI scanners to be able to work with it, get a feel for it, and get a better understanding of these scanners. But with these simulation environments, they can have access to it at all times in their universities, readily available. So that's been it for the simulators that we had here, but there's still some unanswered questions that I have regarding, for example, what goes on behind the scenes to make these simulations a reality, and also about the plans that this company might have for the future. I saw the devices and simulators that they currently have, eGalaxy, but to find out about their plans for the future, if there's going to be any additional models or how they're going to be upgrading their current models, Mohammad Reza Mansouri, the CEO of eGalaxy, will help me out. Mohammad Reza?
ما در واقع پلن‌های جدیدی که داریم و دستگاه جدیدی که داریم کار می‌کنیم، یکیش difficult intubation هست. difficult intubation یکی از سیمولیشنش رو ساختیم چون خودش یکی از کابوس‌های دکترهای بیهوشیه و در واقع اینها باید با استفاده از این سیمولیتور چیزی رو یاد بگیرن که ممکنه در دوران کارشون خیلی کم پیش بیاد و میتونه بسیار بسیار اتفاق مرگباری باشه و مریض پیش از شروع عمل از بین بره. مورد بعدی که داریم روش کار میکنیم سیمولیشن پلاسنتا پرکرتا هست. پلاسنتا پرکرتا سخت‌ترین جراحی زنان هست که یک سیمولیشن بسیار بسیار سخت هست. این سیمولیشن در دنیا میتونه در واقع یک کار بسیار یونیک و منحصر به فردی باشه. سیمولیشن دیگه ای که داریم کار میکنیم سیمولیشن آموزشی رادیوتراپی هست که در واقع رادیوتراپی هم یکی از پروسیجرهای بسیار پرخطره که کاربرها با استفاده از این میتونن یاد بگیرن که چطور مریض رو ستاپ کنن و چطور در واقع این خطر رو کمتر کنن براش.
Now, to be able to make these simulators and these simulation environments, you need to bring together a lot of different sciences, and you need to have an experience in each of these fields. So tell me about your experience and the company's experience in each of these fields.
یکی از دلایلی که ما توانمند شدیم در تولید سیمولیشن ها این بوده که ما در علوم مختلفی در زمانهای مختلفی پتنت داشتیم و کارهای منحصر به فردی تونستیم انجام بدیم. مثلا ما در تولید بازی‌های رایانه‌ای بیشتر از 15 سال در بازی‌های جدی سیریوس گیم ها حدود 15 سال سابقه داریم و جز اولین تولید کننده اونها تو ایران بودیم. بعد چون در واقع یک سیمولیشن در واقع همه تکنولوژی‌ها کمک میکنن که سیریوس گیم در اونها بتونه خوب کار کنه. توی در واقع ما مکانیک کارهای خیلی خوبی در حد دستگاه‌های توزیع مایعات دارویی یا داروخونه رباتیک انجام دادیم که کارهای سطح بالایی در سطح مکانیک بوده. در الکترونیک هم همینطور و در واقع اینها اتفاقی که در سیمولیشن ها میفته این که تمام این علوم در بالاترین سطح در یک نقطه به هم میرسن که میتونه یه دونه سیمولیشن جوری کار کنه که به اون در واقع یوزر اون احساس واقعی اون پروسیجر رو
authentic feel of the procedure. All right, thank you very much, Mohammad Reza, for the information. Let's wrap up the show. The medical simulators that we showcased today are being used in universities across the country, and they are one of the reasons why Shiraz is at the heart of the medical tourism of Iran. Thank you for watching another episode of Iran Tech, and I'll see you guys next week.